So happiness is not an ingredient.
No.
Right? So focusing on tiramisu is good, but you need to explore what is it? What is it? Tiramisu is triggering that, but where it comes from. Next time when you start scrolling your phone, think it as a food. I'm not supposed to eat many sweets in a day. Why I am allowing me to eat or consume so much, it could be anything, violent content or flashy thing, something which doesn't even make sense to me. Why I am consuming it?
Hi guys, I'm very excited today to have the next episode with Anurag Aggarwal for our The Future of Skills podcast, whereby we'll be discussing today how to make a successful move, how to do a career change successfully. Therefore today, I'll talk you a little bit about Anurag's transitioning from his successful career in finance, where he's been in 18 years, and then he's moved into being an expert in culinary world most recently, after having fulfilled his lifelong ambition of being a top 3 UK finalist at MasterChef UK, which is a phenomenal, obviously, success rate for Anurag, for somebody who wanted to make that transitioning into his passion for quite a while, perhaps, but we'll learn about that more. So there we go. Let's try and find out a little bit more details about Anurag's transitioning career. First question that I've got for Anurag, if that's okay, is, Anurag, tell us a little bit about yourself. What defines you? And now that we'll extend a little bit that part, what was your career progression so far, and what are some of the key decisions that you have made that brought you where you are today, please? I know it's a bit more of an extended question, but still.
Well, first of all, thank you, Nadia, for giving me this opportunity to express myself. What defines me? Yeah, it's a $1 million question. If I have to just use 3 words: creativity, courage, and happiness. That's what defines me, and it gave me some time over the last few years just to think about it. Who am I? What I want to do? What is important for me? And I can't think beyond this thing. And what's my purpose of life? Who am I? I think my purpose of life is pursuit of happiness. That's what drives me each day. That's why I do what I do. And that was the driving force behind this kind of, like, looking back, it sounds very scary actually, leaving a corporate job, getting into absolutely unknown territory in culinary world. But I feel very blessed that I had that right mindset, which kind of kept me going. And I always give an importance to how I feel rather than how physically things are looking around me.
And that's a very good mention you're making here in terms of how do you feel, the pursuit of happiness. I did have another question prepared, but still, as part of this relatable mention that you made, what would you say is happiness for you as a term, as a feeling?
You know, personally speaking, when I think about it, if I think very deeply about what is happiness, it is kind of you can argue it's a mental state.
Yeah.
At a probably a little deeper level. But generally what we see, I was working in corporate career. It was a really nice job. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You've been a vice president as well in your role.
Yes. So it gave me all kind of materialistic, philosophical, esteemed. It kind of met all my needs, what you can expect. It was amazing. Now I'm a chef. I do motivational speaking. I'm working on a book as well. So can I compare that? Can I say my past career as a finance professional was more fulfilling, or I was more happy in there, or I'm happier now? So I see all these careers, these things, objects, scenarios in your life, they are just the triggers for happiness. But I'm kind of coming from a finance, I need things black and white. So I need to find out, what is the source of happiness? Let's say I cook a dish, I feel absolutely amazing. I feel very happy. So cooking doesn't contain any happiness, but it triggers something. Then after that, I feel happy.
Absolutely. You're seeing the result of your work.
Yes, absolutely. So coming back to your question, what is happiness to me? Happiness to me is looking introverts. looking inwards rather than just focusing on the objects outside.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Not only it is amazing to me to hear this type of questions, that the focus is on the triggers, I suppose, right, from what you were saying, but it's also the fact that you're very see-through when it comes to focusing on the process to see that end result, and from there you're making a fulfillment.
Absolutely. So you have to there's nothing wrong about focusing on the triggers. You have to give them importance, right?
Yeah.
But you can't depend on them. They keep changing. One day they give you happiness, other day, I always give this example, I don't know, what is
Tell
your
me.
favorite dessert?
Favorite dessert? Tiramisu, maybe?
Tiramisu, yes, absolutely. So do you feel happy after eating it?
Short term, yes.
Short term, absolutely.
Yes.
That's the key. So if I serve you one tiramisu, probably you'll feel amazing. You'll feel, wow, this is what makes me happy. If I offer you 10 tiramisu, would you feel the same?
No.
Probably,
Even it's my favorite one.
Absolutely. If I force you to eat 100 tiramisu, I'm sure you'll end up in A&E. And rest of your life, you will hate
it. Yes.
tiramisu. So what does this tell us about happiness? So happiness is not an ingredient.
No.
Right? So
Love it.
focusing on tiramisu is good. But you need to explore, what is it? What is it? Tiramisu is triggering that, but where it comes from. I am the common element eating that tiramisu, 1 or 10. So it must be something within. And we always have that. We always have that. Once you get that clarity, once you get that insight, so you still work towards the triggers. Could be job, could be materialistic things, money, house, profession in my case. But then you don't give it too much importance. And that is kind of secret to a long-lasting happiness, because then you don't feel disappointed when the triggers don't work.
That's amazing, and such a good opening to our discussion today, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because it fulfills a little bit that part of the philosophy as and your beliefs as to how do you see yourself connected to that topic, and the lifestyle alongside. So We'll have another dedicated question on the lifestyle. Please bear with me. But the next one that I'm very keen on, given that we're discussing career change today and what has helped you make that move. So your career change intent started a while before your success with MasterChef. Talk to us a little bit more about that time. Where did the motivation for change come from?
I'll just go back to, I call myself Anurag Food Story, whether it's about food or myself, I always will tell you a lot of stories. So I'll start with very childhood of mine, back in India, born and brought up in a very lovely, average middle class family. Back in those days, there was few social constructs which were available for all of us. In my times, it was science, engineering, finance. And I very conveniently picked up finance as to build up my career. And I was pretty much, I would say, done well on that front. My family was always very supported. But somewhere inside me, I had that kind of passion about arts and creativity in some or the other form. I used to make so many, crafts, models, and of course, cooking was another passion of mine as a child, from a very young age. And my family, I feel very blessed to have that kind of supportive family, especially in Indian culture. Generally, men are supposed to be super manly. They should not have any interest in arts and craft. Nonetheless, in cooking, of course, it's a female prerogative.
Yeah.
But in my family, everybody supported me in there. So beside, trying to create a living out of finance career, I kind of kept nurturing that inner flame, my creative quest. And cooking was one of that. So that was building up when I moved to this country in 2010. I kind of continued on that social construct, kept on climbing the corporate ladder. But inside something was missing. I won't say that I wasn't happy. I was happy on papers. Right. But something was missing. And one thing led to another. I again gone more on the philosophical side. What is the purpose of my life? Do I supposed to keep doing a job for rest of my life? It sounds very petty. I have everything what you can imagine. But then what is it what is missing? that was the inner conflict between pursuing a social construct versus following your passion, which was always in arts and creativity and cooking being at the top of them.
How interesting.
So, cutting the story short, so what led to that transition? What was that, flip moment? So, like we all say that, we have families, we have commitment, mortgage, what not, kids. So we need a safety net.
Yes.
We need a safety net. You need to keep doing the job, whatever you're doing, because of course it pays the bill. There's nothing wrong about it, right? But when the COVID happened, that kind of gave me that deeper realization, what we consider a safety net, a secured lifestyle is nothing but a myth. It's nothing but a myth. Somebody sneezes on you and you can die in 2 weeks' time. What are you calling as safety? So that gave me courage. Of course, I took care of all my responsibility, took a calculated decision that I was able to gather that courage to take that very first steps towards making my passion as my profession.
How amazing. You're basically deep diving into the commentary that I was supposed to make, that it's to do with your courage, because I appreciate the safety net that you were referencing. I appreciate the calculated move, as you've mentioned, your end, because obviously the man is the pillar of the family ultimately, in many cultures and many families. So the fact that you've realized during the COVID times that, as you said, comes with realization that some things are not that safety anymore when you feel about, health, what fulfills that next move, and your passion, and you had the courage to listen to that gap that was still there, that you were saying you felt that something was missing.
Absolutely.
So in order to fulfill that gap, might I ask, what were some of your first steps? So I appreciate the calculated move. Let's get to the next steps. What were the first steps in order to get you out there?
First step for me was absolutely making sure I should cut down myself completely from my finance profession.
That's a golden tip.
And it's easier said than done, to be honest, because of course you have to take care of all the logistics and practical necessities in your life. It's not everybody's game, but I was able to do that, thankfully. My family support was there, because that is the most important thing, because they give you confidence. Yes, you haven't gone insane. We don't know whether you're doing the right thing or wrong thing, but you have our full support. So thanks to my wife and my family who believed in me. So I've cut down myself absolutely from the corporate world, that I decided I'll not apply for any jobs. I'll not look for any roles. To your point, what was my first step in the persuasion of my passion in the culinary world? I came up with a very, cliche idea. I want to open my restaurant. I had absolutely no idea where to start with, what to do. But I had that something in my mind. My motto was I wanted to do something in food.
Yes.
And as a very, kind of being naive, I said, let me open a restaurant. So it's not about what you decide, what you want to do on a particular path, but you need to commit mentally that you want to do something.
That's a very good shot.
And give your 100% to that. And again, nothing is small, big. Just take one step at a time. I started speaking to people and, even started looking at the locations.
Yep.
I would say now when I look back, thankfully, nothing happened. Nothing worked out. Thankfully, because we all know the state of economy right now we are living in.
And the COVID time, isn't it? When
it's quite hard. Then one thing led to another. One day, randomly, I just, happened to apply it for MasterChef.
Yes.
And rest all is history. MasterChef was never my goal, to be honest. But I think that has given me that platform, that courage, that acknowledgement.
To further support you.
Further support me. And again, that for me, that mental acknowledgement, mental confidence is priceless.
Exactly.
It just sits on the top of the things what I need to keep going.
And wasn't that very much in line with your new direction of the brand that you were starting to build up in the culinary world more so?
Absolutely. MasterChef is number one food show in UK, not in UK, I think globally.
Globally, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's a very nice platform for people like me who want to do something in culinary world. First of all, to get that kind of exposure. For example, I cooked in 3 Michelin star restaurant in British Embassy in Istanbul. Who get that? You can't buy those things.
Absolutely.
But
not.
what it does to you, those kind of experience and exposures, you start feeling seriously about your passion. Generally, mostly people think their passion is just a hobby, and they don't take it seriously. They don't feel that they can really build a career out of it. I still have a long way to learn. I'm not saying that I know everything. Every day I'm learning something or the other. But it's such a good kickstart to get associated with such a show. And I was very fortunate to stay till the very last day of the competition. I've cooked, I think, 18 times in MasterChef. So, yeah.
That sounds busy.
It was crazy, to be honest. I can't do that again. But having said that, that gave me that courage, confidence, mindset, and of course, a very good network also. To reach out to, not just for help, just for the guidance.
So now that we have touched base on the passion and what has helped you succeed in the MasterChef competition, which again, we all know how competitive it is, and the fact that, as you said, you managed to stay until the very end, being the finalist and cooking 18 dishes on the day, that sounds amazing. But let's talk a little bit about your versatile skill set that has helped you along the way in the competition inclusively. What makes you a passionate cook today? And if you're sourcing your cooking skills from childhood, as you alluded to, this leads me to a story about the Michelin star cook shown in a renowned Hollywood movie starring Helen Mirren, The 100-Foot Journey. And there I recall that you said that you've seen it. Now, the movie hero came to Europe from India, and he pursued his career as a cook, obviously in Europe later on. In your case, would it be close to you if I say you might have had this always-on calling to become a cook, yet you've only allowed yourself to do so after you've seen the family needs fulfilled first?
Yeah, it's a tricky question, as I said, it's a balancing act. We ultimately live in a very transactional world.
Yes.
Where everything is measured and driven by so-called objectives and goals. Talking about my own journey, first of all, about MasterChef, what kept me going, what was my edge?
Yes.
I think it might sound very, very odd, me saying that. I think it was never a competition for me. Nothing else, nobody existed for me in that competition. Apparently, I think 20,000 people applied there this year. And then, of course, 45 of us made it through the doors of MasterChef. And finally, I was standing there in the last top 3. So if I genuinely, honestly look back into that, when I watched the whole series on television, I was surprised and amazed at the same time to see how talented people were. So no way I can say I was, any different or any better from rest of 44 contestants in the show. What kept me going, what gave me courage and that drive, it was all about me. It sounds very, very odd, very orthodox saying that. It almost seems like a bit selfish. But for me, I thought okay, what I want to do. What was my goal? There was no goal whatsoever. The only one goal I had to express myself, to express my creativity, to express my passion. All I could have done there is just to focus on what kind of food I can produce. I have to be honest with myself to give my 100%. That's what I have done. I never worried or never kind of taken any stress whether what other contestants are doing, how judges are going to feel about it. And I think when I look back, that pretty much worked well for me. Because what it has done, it has allowed me to give my 100%, plus it has taken out that stress of so-called, even cooking in front of 10 cameras. Other contestants doing, guest chefs are coming, and judges have all kind of comments. So you tend to feel nervous, right? So I've kind of put on those blinders, very selfish blinders. And I feel proud about it because I was able to get into that mindset that kept me going.
It's quite a laser-focused strategy, isn't it? And I love the fact that you said yourself that by the matter of focusing on your own self during the whole journey, we will not call a competition for you, I'll just say a journey for the whole time, it allowed you to stay away from the pressure of the stress and for looking around other competitors and whatnot. So you were the focus of all that.
Absolutely. And then you talked about, like from where the motivation came from my childhood memories and, just on course of my life. Definitely, as I mentioned before, that inner cook or inner artist inside me was kind of bubbling away to be able to express. And I was very fortunate to get that opportunity and exploit that passion which was bubbling away for years in my life. I was kind of like in some different zone, as if I was singing in Sydney Opera House and all the lights on me, and I was just flying free. So that was kind of very freeing feeling in a way to be able to express. And of course, I love cooking. I was studying quite a lot about watching a lot of videos, doing a lot of practice at home. So a lot of hard work has also gone in. But my key driver was that inner urge to do something about it.
So the self-expression, that's what I believe you're saying was your goal in there, not so much the end result of winning to be a finalist or winning to be part of the first 45 people that were selected, but the fact that it gave you the opportunity to express yourself more so.
Of course. Like you have to have a goal.
Sign, by the way.
You have to have a kind of a goal post, but don't get attached to it. I didn't want it to get out of the show on the very first day. I wanted to do well.
But it gave you 100%.
Exactly. But I stopped thinking about it. Then I start focusing on what I can do.
Exactly.
I think in management, we all learned about that theory, circle of influence and circle of concern. And I'm a firm believer in that. We make our circle of concern so big sometimes. However, circle of influence is very, very, very tiny. So you have to work other way around. So I focused on what I can influence. What judges are going to say, that is none of my concern.
Exactly.
That is their job. Let them do it.
Yeah, you're just focusing on what you can do best to be part of that journey. And that's an amazing advice for everyone who would be looking and watching this later on. And now in terms of staying safe and fulfilled as the topic for the next question, would you say the career changes need to be very well thought through? In your case, you kind of alluded the answer to that question earlier by saying that you made a very calculated move when you decided to. But do you think you could have made this change regardless of your success at MasterChef if it wasn't to, put a limelight on you at the time?
In fact, like I do believe, what we call safety, being safe, is a myth. It's absolutely a myth. Nothing is safe. And then, of course, I'll go back to COVID. Who would have thought, like, for 2 years, whole global economy, personal life will get locked down?
Yes, exactly.
Anything can happen. Nothing is safe. And that's the very nature of our existence. Our all life starts with a birth, taking birth. One day we are going to die. So you say, okay, you want to live long, healthy, that's fine. Like, that's a kind of a part of the movie. But your end is already decided. So it's a kind of a lie we keep telling ourselves that we want safety, security. You just need to go with the flow. Go with the flow. And being calculative, yes, you have to take care of the practicalities. And that's, again, I'll go back to my other theory, giving your best.
Yes.
So you have to deal with things. You have to accept. Most of the time, we waste our energy in order to change something externally. If we just change ourselves, which is our circle of influence, we can only influence our mind. Let's say I was looking at the restaurant properties for 1 year. Nothing was working out. I would have gone into depression, right? Yeah, everything is rubbish. Nothing is working out. People are this and that, start putting blames on other things.
Yeah.
Then I said, let me accept it. Yeah. What I can do about it? Can I look for some other alternative? Nothing is safe. Nothing is final. Nothing is secure. only thing what you can work on your own mindset and what efforts you put in towards a goal. So that's my advice. People who are looking for a career change, broadly, you have to take an informed decision, right? What are the ins and outs? Do you feel that your life, you won't be on the street in 1 month's time if you leave your current job and start doing something else? So you need to safeguard things, but draw a line. Draw a line. What is your definition of safety? Do you need a certain amount of money in your bank account? Something like that. Draw that line and stick to that. But you have to take a leap of faith. There's something we always call sixth sense, or what your gut tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Clear your mind so you can clearly see that and just
That's
follow
amazing.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more with you on that, because it feels that, as you said yourself, trying to put a lot of effort into changing other things externally and forgetting what's out there in you that probably is, screaming to get out, to get to the surface, to get you to listen to it, to that inner voice of yours. And if you're not having that good ear to follow that route and then trying to do something externally first, that's probably not going to work as well as if you were to start with yourself.
Absolutely.
That's probably the best, advice that I would as well be aligned to and give to anyone who would be in the career-changing mood, or even those ones who are starting their careers, who are graduates these days, who are looking for some advice as to where to start first with yourself, with what you actually can get out with your passions and your skills that you're investing a little bit more. Because if you don't do that, then going by the flow and trying to follow the trends out there that are not necessarily something to your liking will not be a longer term journey, right?
and that's another good point what you raise about here, about especially in context of career change. You always need to introspect, what is your why?
Yeah.
What is your why? Do you honestly believe in that? Why you want to change the career? So be honest. We all know what is right or wrong, what is honest or what is dishonest. We all know somewhere when we are lying to ourselves.
No, absolutely.
So don't lie to yourself. Be honest about your why. And another thing, especially when it comes to career or financial sustainability, we always think about, okay, we try to measure it. What is success? What success looks like? And that's a trap. That's a trap. Because it cannot be black and white. Mostly, as human species, we measure everything in a very materialistic form.
Agreed.
Which is fine. There's nothing wrong about it. And only material can be measured. But more than half of our being, our personalities, our individuality is not material in nature. It can't be quantified. So you need to take that also in account when you define success for you. It's not just the paycheck, what you're going to get out of a job. It's about how you feel doing that job.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah.
So what if you weren't to answer the question, what success is for you? How do you define success? As you said yourself, it could be a trap.
Yeah.
So if you were not to look the answer for that question, then probably the better question would be, how does what you're doing or what to do would make you feel? That's probably the starting point to anything, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You need to think about it and give it some time. Everybody might have different question. And also regarding career change, and I'm talking about, some very deep philosophical insights here. Probably not everyone would appreciate them. And especially when it comes to...
If they're not ready to.
if they are not ready. And, there's another great philosopher, Maslow.
Maslow, yeah.
And then he came up with this amazing theory.
Theory of needs, yeah.
Hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And it starts with very basic physiological needs. Then it goes to security, then love and emotion, then self-esteem, then finally self-actualization or self-realization. So depending on where you are on this hierarchy, so your actions, your decision would reflect that.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's a great advice, isn't it?
So, of course, when I was, let's say, studying in college or school, I was prepared to take such decision? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because that time I focus on just, fulfilling my physiological needs, getting education, getting a job, earning a certain amount of money. Now I feel, okay, that is not important. No, I'm not saying that is not important, but there's the right time for everything. And you should look for where you are on that hierarchy and then do things accordingly.
That's a great insight, Anurag. I think exactly that. It comes from the matter of needs, or the topic of needs, if you like, and then you'd be able to look into where you are with your resources, what type of skills do you possess, what's realistic for you to embark on.
Absolutely. And again, coming back to the success point, what mostly people will say, success drives me. But what does success means to oneself?
Exactly.
Right. For example, it just means to me now when I look back, of course, this definition keeps evolving depending on where you are in your personal or professional life, right? That gives you maturity to see things differently. Success to me is just being able to give my 100%. Give my 100%. And being able to stay in that, let's say, I won't say happy mode, but stay in that content mode, irrespective of the outcome. That is success to me. That is priceless.
The fact that you are not focusing that much on the outcome, though, it's probably a safeguarding tool for me, or a shield to me, which allows you to not get so much embarked on some potential demotivators, right? Because the outcome can be positive, it can be negative to the ultimate goal. But when you're not so much focused on that, then you're kind of, you're in a safety position.
Yeah, I like to just add a bit there. So when I say the outcome, the result of outcome should not impact you, that doesn't mean that you haven't focused on that. So there is a difference, So when you start a journey, let's say you wanted to go from, today we traveled from Basildon to London, right? So our goal was to reach London in time. Mm-hmm. That was our target, right? So whether if we were focused to meet our goals, yes, of course. We were. Otherwise, you would have taken a train in some opposite direction.
Yeah, gone to Brighton probably.
Yeah, exactly. So goals are very important. So it's something like very deeper people need to understand. Yeah. You need to have a goal. You need to have a target. You need to focus on that as well. However, you need to make sure you give your 100% to achieve or to reach that goal. The point I'm trying to make that we get attached to the results of that goal. Mm-hmm. Let's say our trains got stuck or
and
got
you can't
cancelled.
do it on time.
Yes, or something else might have happened. It happens all the time. How that different outcome would make me feel? Would I feel that now it's not a success? Or I take solace in the point that I gave my best. I started in time from home. I planned my journey. If trains got cancelled, that's fine. That is not end of the world. So there's a difference. You have to focus on goals, but don't get attached to the type of outcome. That frees you up. Because to follow a path, you need a direction. You need a goal. But just don't get attached to the results. That's what create all the sufferings. And I'm going to say a very, very controversial thing. Even happiness, so-called the way we perceive happiness and pleasure, is also a suffering.
And it's that?
It's a bigger suffering than the suffering as what we know.
Are you saying that suffering has been part of the process more so? Or are you saying that not in the process rather than the outcome of what we think happiness might bring us?
Absolutely, because let's say if we would have got late today, so we would have suffered technically, right? So then of course you feel bad, you have a bad mood whole day. So that is suffering. But if say you have reached somewhere in time and you feel, wow, I'm best, the next time you start putting that pressure on you that you have to exceed the prior one, and you live in that fear constantly, you might lose it. So probably this is not a good example in this journey thing, but let's say, especially in media, especially, there's a lot of things about fame and glamour.
Sure.
Let's say if
that's a
I am
good
a movie
example.
star, I do a movie, yeah. My goal is to do a best role, this and that. Let's say it becomes a blockbuster. If it absolutely flops, of course I'll suffer, yeah. On the other hand, if it goes absolutely super hit, I'll feel absolutely amazing, right? But at the same time, I have to pay the price for that high state in terms of living in that fear. Can I sustain that thing for longer? How people are perceiving me now, what I should do to maintain that. But if you would have taken the earlier route where you have given your best to work in a movie, whether it flops or becomes a blockbuster, that should not impact you that much. That will motivate me to do the next thing. That will neither put me on the top of mountain nor drown me.
You'll just try again.
Exactly.
Again, 100%.
Exactly.
And maybe then, the environment would be different. There would be different critics that would come up and say their view.
Exactly.
Or it would be completely different factors influencing that.
Absolutely. So that's my definition of success. And it is very hard. It's very hard, honestly, because of course, all the factors around you does influence you. I'm not a saint at all from any means, right? I do get impacted I do go through ups and downs all the time. But if you keep reminding yourself this thing, like what really drives you, how much you are attached to that type of outcome.
You're opening up a nice bracket here. And actually, I'm going to ditch my questions for the rest for the rest of the discussion, because the bracket that you've opened up inspires me for the next question that's not on the list.
Yeah.
And this is to do with that wisdom that comes with these realizations that you've just shared. And by which I mean, what would you say are some of the other pleasures, some of the other skills that you're taking the time to develop along the way so that you stay sane when it comes to getting yourself potentially impacted by some of the outcomes that are not there to be necessarily the most positive that you would want them to be, right? So if you were to not focus on those outcomes and rather focus on giving your best, giving the 100% best, how do you develop your skill set so that you're confident that it's that 100% that you're giving out?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. And again,
you've opened up.
Yeah, and there's no specific answer to it as such. And it depends on person to person. For example, personally speaking about me. So since I have took this drastic decision, I want to stop my corporate career and build on the culinary. Of course, not from day one I was super busy or engaged. I was sitting idle at home, right? But I think what kept me going to have a routine on a very basic level. I'm a fitness freak. I go for run, gym, swimming. So, just make sure that you are physically occupied. You do something constructive and take care of your health and stay in the positive environment. That again brings back me to food.
Yes.
And you say what role food has to play to so-called safeguarding yourself from any impact of negative or positive, so-called as we call it, in our lives. So food plays two roles, and again, think about deeply who we are, what we are rather than who we are, what really makes us. So I would classify that into two buckets. One is very physical self, very gross body. Of course, like we need food to sustain it, right? And we all know, I don't have to talk about it, that we should eat healthy, balanced diet, etc., which keeps our body in a kind of, you can say, optimal state till we die. We have to still die. You're not going to live forever. Right. So just don't get crazy about it. Just do things in which makes sense, Just follow that thing. Another part, like what is the second part which makes us, is that I think I alluded to that subtle part. Subtle part being our mind, our emotions, feelings, inspiration. So you can say it's very hard to differentiate where our so-called gross body ends and where the subtle body starts. It's kind of intermingled, right? So we take care of the food for our physical body. Very good start. What is the food for our subtle body? What we feed to make sure we are mentally healthy. What we feed ourselves.
Passions, perhaps, right?
Passions. But that is also part of the subtle body. Right. So I'm going somewhere else here. So what you have to eat to make sure your subtle
still
body...
eating. You're still on the eating side.
Yeah, eating side, but more on the philosophical side. If I ask you, Nadia, so of course, to keep your body healthy, you eat balanced diet, you exercise, etc., etc. But to keep your mind healthy, first of all, what is the food for mind?
How about intermittent fasting?
But that is again physical. Here
Yes,
we are
it is.
still stuck about the so-called physical food. Either you eat or don't eat. So let me break the suspense.
Yeah.
I think the food for our subtle body is the information what we consume.
The type of content that you consume as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything what you witness, what you read, what you watch, what you feel, what kind of people you surround yourself with. Some few things are out of your control, but most of them in today's, especially modern technology, we are constantly feeding our subtle body with such a rubbish. And then we want to fix the whole 100% product just by changing the 50% gross food. That is going to be helpful, but very minimal extent. And another key thing to maintaining that mental health fine,
Yep.
for the gross body, if you eat something junk, your body would reject it, right? It's an auto-correcting mechanism. But for
That's a
the
very good
mental
point.
thing, what goes in never comes out. Never comes out. It always stays there.
That's
So let's-
very deep. I haven't thought about that, but I do appreciate and I do align with what you're saying.
Absolutely. So, sorry, I lost the thought. What was the main...
About the subtle, the fact that what you get into your subtle mind
what
doesn't
kind
get
of
out.
like, okay, safeguard you against the outcome.
Yeah.
So if you take care of your both physical and subtle body, physical body by, of course, no rocket science, eat good food, healthy food, exercise. And for the subtle body, which is more important because that is kind of your software. This is all hardware. Hardware has to work fine, but without software, everything starts crashing, which happens with most of the people. So make sure you are conscious and aware what you are feeding to your subtle body in terms of whatever information you consume. It could be in terms of media, your even own thoughts. You are feeding your mind with bad thoughts. You start with a
Totally
small
agree with
thing.
you.
You dislike a person. You start thinking about them.
And that affects us.
And you start building on that. Are they doing anything that time? No. It's just you are nurturing that thought, making it bigger and bigger. Just stop there. And that kind of continuous practice, it doesn't happen in one day. Like good bodies are not made in one day. You have to really put a lot of hard effort. So your overall immunity against non-attachment to the outcome of result is a result of a healthy, holistic body, both physically as well as mentally. So next time when you start thinking about it, next time when you start scrolling your phone, think it as a food. I'm not supposed to eat many sweets in a day. Why I am allowing me to eat or consume so much, it could be anything, violent content or flashy thing, something which doesn't even make sense to me. Why I am consuming it? And it's ever going to stay inside you, ever.
But do you find there's a lot of guidance out there, a lot of material that we can find out a little bit more to guide ourselves as to which type of content? Because I completely agree with you in the sense that some content out there makes us feel in a certain way, even without us realizing that it's linked to that content that we've just consumed, or to a point around the thoughts. Thoughts can be extremely detrimental to us, to the physical part, not just the mental part. So when it comes to that, do you feel that there's out there enough sources out there to get the guidance from in order to learn how to do that better?
Yeah, and I do feel there's a lot of gap in there, and in a way, the way our society is working, the way so-called scientific school of thought works. So science acknowledges whatever is measurable. whatever can be perceived using our five senses. And when we talk about all these subtle things, they can't be measured. Unfortunately speaking, there's no guidance whatsoever. There's not even a realization. Forget about the guidance will come only when you feel something is bad. People take proud. Oh, I worked 22 hours a day. You should be feeling pity for you. What's the thing to feel proud about it? You must be going crazy. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, oh, I know this thing, I know that thing, I know all about universe, I know this. So that kind of greed to consume more and more food, for what? But you have to pay price in some or the other way. So it's more like internal realization, I would say. So it has to start from somewhere. Again, going back to what is my ultimate purpose of life, pursuit of happiness. So I need to keep looking back at that goal of mine, my purpose of life. Am I happy? What is making me unhappy? Right? So can I try this thing? Can I stop? Can I minimize, let's say, watching TV? Can I minimize scrolling social media? Can I never ever play any violent video games? Because I don't get anything out of that, but I do lose my sense of peace, my sense of happiness. If it is important for someone, they will do it. And going back to the more holistic thing, that kind of mindset, that kind of discipline, both at a physical and a subtle level, keep building your immunity against any outcome, whatever happens in your life.
And that's fair. And I think it also helps identify the starting point. Hence why my question initially was around, I know we started from the actual points, the more materialistic points in terms of, evaluation of the state of where you were and how you've made up your career change and whatnot. But I think the way that we've developed our discussion went into the actuals that are feeding our bodies from in and out, so that we can get the 100%, so that we can actually figure out if the process counts, if the end result counts, and then along the way be a little bit more self-aware in terms of knowing what does us good, not only from the content that we consume, but from the food that we consume. And what do we mean when we say the term food? Because it sounds like it's not just the physical food, it's also the mental, the overall surrounding us when it comes to content and whatnot. Because I'm very passionate actually about that topic when it comes to the idea of the content that you consume. Because then if it's the wrong content, you can't even eat your food, right, properly. It will get stuck in your gut.
Exactly.
It needs to be a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know that you're writing also a book, so I'll probably warm this up as a discussion, and we'll invite everyone else who will be watching this after to come up with their own question on the topics that we've discussed today, because I'm sure that when it comes to this philosophical approach to food, the well-being, and connecting the two elements together, there'll be more that will come up in your book, wouldn't it? So there's more to come and look forward to.
I totally agree with that. And as I always say, even talking about the physical food, what we eat, one has to ask that question. Very, very fundamental question. Do we eat to live, or we live to eat?
I've heard it multiple times and I totally resonate with that.
Yeah. So people get me wrong sometimes. You say, what are you talking about? You are a chef. You should be like eating all the time. No. That doesn't mean that I won't consume tasty and amazing dishes. I would definitely do that. But again, what is the fundamental driver behind me either cooking or eating any food? Is food the purpose of my life? It sounds very, very, I don't know. I don't even have words to explain that.
Very shallow.
Yeah, in a way. But people are crazy about it, and that's where things start going wrong. Where you become slave to things what you are supposed to manage.
Exactly.
They are just parts. You can't say they are good part, bad part, important or less important, but they are just part. They are there. You need to consume food in order to just maintain your...
It's a tool. You can make it more sexy, you can make it more appealing.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it's still a tool.
Absolutely. But you have to draw a line and start seeing from that perspective. So I have just currently started doing this intermittent fasting.
Yes.
So it's all about the mindset. I don't feel hungry in there. Like if you again think about it, yeah, you are supposed to eat food just to be alive. You are not living to eat food. It's not the goal of your life. Yeah, so and that reflects in all my recipes, whatever I cook. It has to be good, right? But you have to draw a line.
Absolutely. I think long-term, ultimately, not the short-term, not the shallow, but the long-term gains.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so grateful that we've had this talk today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Wishing you all the best.
Cheers. Thank you.
And with the book as well.
Absolutely.